It was 2008, and I was planning what seemed like the first vacation I had taken since starting my last company, everydayhealth.com, in 2002. So without enough time to plan the epic disconnect I so badly needed, I went to Amazon.com and I bought the Wallpaper magazine guide to the city of Marrakesh, where I was planning on going. The guide arrived, I planned my trip, and basically verbatim, I took the recommendations of the editors of Wallpaper magazine. And boy, did I have a great time. Each recommendation was better than the last. So much so that at the end of my trip, when I was sitting in the airport lounge, waiting for my flight back to JFK, I went back to Amazon and I bought 10 more Wallpaper City guides to cities that I was planning on going to in the future. And so wait a second, I'm gonna get a little personal here. I'm gonna share a little bit of a personal quirk. Some could call it an idiosyncrasy or defining characteristic. I tend to need to know the math and statistics of everything going on around me. And so there's a lot of numbers flying around in my head at all times. And so I knew enough about publishing to know that the editors of Wallpaper had probably made $1.50 in me purchasing this $10 book. I also knew enough about the travel agency or online travel agency business to know that Expedia had made about $1,500 as I booked this $10,000 trip. Wait a second. So the people who actually helped curate the experience and give me a fabulous week made $1.50, and this compares to the people who simply took my credit card and they made $1,500. So as a marketer at heart, I kind of took a step back and said, in what marketing ecosystem is that a reality where the people who inspire the transaction make 1/1000th, in this case, of the people who simply process the payment? And as I felt this sort of Jerry Maguire moment sweeping over me, I landed in JFK, back to life and back to reality. Fast forward to 2014, we had just taken Everyday Health public on the New York Stock Exchange, which I used as my curtain call to exit. And I was again in need of another epic disconnect. This time, I took what I'll call the 30-day March Madness sabbatical. And that basically, it's very much what it sounds like. I sat on my couch for about 30 days, and I watched every single March Madness game as my wife watched on horrified. At the end of the tournament, she turned to me and said, I really hope this isn't what your everyday health life, post-everyday health life is going to look like. I said, don't worry, honey. I had this Jerry Maguire moment years ago. I'm going to go back and revisit it, and I'm going to see if there's something there. So, you know, I'd reached out to my friends who ran different travel publishing businesses. I networked and met some C-suite hotel executives. I met some hotel general managers, and I started doing research. I tripped across the Greenwich Hotel, which is literally around the corner from where I live in Tribeca, and their story is a little different. You know, they're at 95% occupancy, and they, by policy, will never be on an OTA. So how do they do it? Well, Robert De Niro is one of the owners. He's also one of the founders of the Tribeca Film Festival. And so every year, his posse or crew or entourage descends on the hotel as part of the Tribeca Film Festival, and that gets picked up in Hollywood Reporter and Travel and Leisure and Condé Nast Traveler and all sorts of blogs, and they really know that every year they have this reliable PR engine. And so the hotel is completely full and really a case study in a successful independent hotel. And then I came across another hotel that I'll talk about, the Gladstone Hotel in Toronto. It's a small 37-room hotel where each of the rooms was designed by a local artist. And on a monthly basis, one of those artists does a major installation throughout the hotel. And I would categorize their guests as falling into one of two buckets. Those who knew that they were going to an art hotel with a very avant-garde flair. Maybe they read in Condé Nast Traveler's list of 10 best places to stay for Toronto Pride Week. Maybe they had read about the hotel. And then other guests who had booked on Expedia and didn't really know, they were just looking for a 4-star hotel on Queen West to stay at in Toronto. And those guests, when I was there, there was a plant art installation that kind of made the hotel feel like a jungle. And you could sort of almost pick out who had booked through an OTA and didn't know what they were getting. They kind of looked terrified, and they were going to walk around the corner, and there might be a tiger there or something. So the point that I'm making is, you know, we all wish we could be in the enviable position of a Greenwich Hotel where every year there's this huge PR shot, and that lasts the whole year. And then there's, but content and publishers, you know, new things don't happen all the time. And so so that's why I believe publishers haven't really found their way into a core part of the economic engine of a hotel in the same way that an Expedia has. And does it have to stay that way? Well, I'll take a step back and share a case study. I think it's going to be one of the most important case studies in sort of marketing and advertising. Go back to 2007. MySpace and Facebook are both about the same size. Each of them reach about 100 million people, and they're both cool in different ways. MySpace more music, and Facebook a little bit more personal communities. And MySpace is owned by Fox. And Fox is used to making money by selling TV ads or a spot. You buy this ad, and whatever happens, happens. And that was their business model. Facebook, on the other hand, took a little bit different approach. They engaged in the conversation with the largest marketers in the world. And I'm going to dig into how they worked with Procter & Gamble. They basically said, we've built a big audience. We'd really like to work with you guys. You guys have been doing some testing. You know, one of your brands, let's say Tide, spent $1 million getting more people to like the brand. We want you to, you know, what will it take for you guys to spend more? And the brand manager's answer was very logical. If you can show those 1 million people who liked our brand, you know, are now buying more Tide, and the ROI is good, then of course we'll spend more money. And so Facebook, instead of just saying, oh, we're growing, we're exploding, we're so big, they actually engaged in the conversation. And they created an environment where they could share their data in an anonymized way with a research company that P&G was working with. And basically, the research company got the data of, here's the 1 million people who now like Tide because of the Facebook marketing. And the research company pulled down customer loyalty data. 70% of drugstore and grocery transactions, even though they're not happening online where it's easy to measure, their customer loyalty programs allow marketers to measure them. So the research company pulled that data in. And so then they had the correlation, and they said, okay, well, here's these 1 million people, and here they are. They're buying a lot more Tide. So, you know, fast forward, Facebook has flourished. MySpace is a little bit of history. And what does this have to do with publishing and hotels? Well, with all due respect to most travel publishers, I'm going to say that I think they've acted a little bit like MySpace, whereby they've said, here's a beautiful ad page. It'll be in the beach issue. It'll be $30,000. And when the hotel says, well, what am I going to get for that? You're going to get this beautiful page in the beach issue. And well, what about the revenue? Because I'm accountable for that. It's going to look really great. You know, you're amongst Lexus and some of the best advertisers in the world. And really, the publishers don't know how to engage in that question. And this is kind of the culmination of my Jerry Maguire moment from 2008. My new company, Curacity, is actually in the middle of the largest study that's ever been conducted. I'm going to fathom that it would cost $5 million to hire McKinsey to do this research. But basically, we have 15 hotels who are sharing their primary booking files with us. We have 5 publishers who we've embedded with tracking codes that allow us to see which users are reading about which hotels. And we're actually measuring on a one-to-one user basis, okay, this user read about this hotel, and here they are, they stayed at the hotel 90 days later. That publisher deserves some credit. If we create some incentives, something good might happen. And so, while the study is not yet finished, it's been running for almost a year now. We'll be publishing it in the fall. And I'll give you a little snapshot, though. I'll tease some data out now. Our first publishing partner, we actually co-created SurfaceHotels.com with the editors of Surface Magazine. And on SurfaceHotels.com, we took a hotel that had 2 properties, one in Miami and one in New York. And we we divided the surface audience into two. We said, okay, we're going to market these hotels very heavily and have all of this side read about the hotels. We're not going to market the content about these hotels to this other side, and to create a test and control group. And basically, for the people who were exposed to the content repetitively, for every 1,000 people, about 9 of them ended up staying at one of these 2 properties in the next 6 months. For the non-controlled, or for the group that was not exposed, only 1 in 1,000 people stayed at that hotel in the next 6 months. So we deduce that, to 95% statistical significance, that 8 out of 1,000 people were impacted by the content that was on the site to then therefore stay at the hotel. So there you have it. You can actually measure the point of inspiration, and publishers can actually do this if they want to, and hotels can work with publishers in this way if they want to engage with them in this way. And so, while I'm not really suggesting that Expedia and Priceline are going to go away or not be relevant in the ecosystem, I'm just saying that maybe hotels should consider, instead of spending 95% of their resources and focus trying to close the deal, maybe they should be spending 50-50 and trying to create more demand where if they weren't even on those platforms some of the time, it wouldn't hurt their businesses so much, like the Greenwich Hotel. But obviously, balance is what we think, where we think the pendulum will end up. And so we're excited to pave the way to reshape the conversation that publishers and hotels are having. And I think the result will be more profitable hotels, happier guests who find the right hotels, and more money for travel publishers to produce content that creates further inspiration in the future. A truly virtuous circle. Thank you.